Hey everyone, Charlene here. Today I'm going to share with you a fun and easy technique for shaker cards using your word dies. So let's go down to my desk and see what I'm working with. I have here the big birthday word die. It's this lovely large sentiment that says happy birthday. I've used this before in prior videos. For this technique, whatever word die you're going to use, you want to make sure that it has a shadow behind it, that it has this shadow layer die cut that will cut out around the word die. I'm going to work that in combination with the It's a Party layering stencils. There are 6 layering stencils in this set. So I'll go ahead and grab my sticky mat so we can get started. I have my sticky mat here. I'll bring in a half sheet of 80-pound white cardstock. And then I'll grab my first layer of my stencil here. I like to work with a half sheet of cardstock because it still allows the stencil to stick down on the sides of the paper onto the sticky mat, but it ensures that I get a full large piece to cut from when I'm done. I'm going to make sure to press down the sides of the stencil so that way it sticks well to the sticky mat. And today I'm working with a rainbow of colors for the layers. I thought it would be fun since this is birthday themed. So we have here some Kitsch Flamingo, carved pumpkin, squeezed lemonade, salvaged patina, as well as mermaid lagoon. I'll start the first layer off here with the Kitsch Flamingo. And for each of these layers, I'm just going to get some ink onto my blending brush, work it into the bristles here on my glass mat, and then do an all over of the color. I'm putting a fair amount of ink down. I'm working with Distress Oxides, which layer really, really well because they are a hybrid ink. I like to use them with the layering stencils. It just really creates a nice result. Because this is going to be a background piece, I'm not trying to get any shading in here either. I'm not trying to, make the party hat look 3D or anything like that. I'm just doing a solid all over, somewhat thick layer of the Distress Oxides. Once I have that first layer done, I'll go ahead and peel off the first layer of the stencil, bring in stencil layer number 2, and put this over the top so that it fits in with the images we've already colored. This layer I'm bringing in some carved pumpkin, which is a really nice bright orange. I love using this color for Halloween as well. Just doing the same thing here, building up that orange all the way across the stencil. Once I'm finished, I'll go ahead and take off this second layer of the stencil. And you can see also the color that goes across the top and bottom also makes it easy to help line up the stencil as you're putting on each new layer. For this third layer, I've got some squeezed lemonade, another bright, nice color. This is a nice bright yellow. And then when this stencil layer comes off, you're really going to start to see how this layering stencil works, how it's coming together. You can see we've got some cupcakes and candy and party hats and cake coming along here. And you could make this look more true to life. I've got stencil layer number 4 here. I'm using the salvaged patina. I decided to skip green and instead do this nice kind of aqua or teal color. This is going to color in the stars around here. Like I mentioned, you could definitely do more true to life. You would just need to pay attention to what each layer of the stencil is coloring in. So for example, I'm bringing in stencil layer number 5 here, and I'm going to line it up. This stencil colors in the cake as well as the candles or streamers, I believe. And so if you don't want blue cake, you've got to pay attention to what your layers are going to be. You would want to bring in, a brown or a yellow or something like that for that layer if you were doing more true to life. I think the blue cake looks really fun. That mermaid lagoon is such a nice bright blue. I did forget to bring in my purple earlier. So for the last stencil layer here, I'm using some wilted violet, which is more of a cool toned purple. If you wanted a warmer tone of purple, then you would want to bring in a different color like seedless preserves would be perfect for a warmer purple on this. But I'll do my last all over here of the purple, finish that up so I can remove the layer and look at all of that fun color. So to remove this from my sticky mat, I'm bending the sticky mat away from the paper. That makes it so my paper doesn't bend or warp. I am going to set this aside since there is that pigment portion sitting on top of the paper, and I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. Then once it's nice and dry, I'm going to bring in the third from largest rectangle die here and decide what portion I want for the background of this fun shaker card that we're putting together. Once I have that picked out, I'll bring in some Low-Tack tape here, and I'm gonna hold my die in place so that way it cuts out perfectly when I run it through my die cutting machine. I'm also putting the tape down so that it's outside of the area that is going to be the finished area that I want to have. I'm going to take the shadow now. This is what's going to create our awesome shaker, you guys, and it's so easy to do. I'm going to take that shadow die and I'm going to put it right in the center, and then again use some Low-Tack tape, putting the tape towards the inside because that's the portion we're not going to be using. And I want to try and keep that outer layer where I'm pointing out right there, that's the layer that I want when we're all done. So I'm trying to keep that in really nice as I'm running this through here on my die cutting machine. I'll put it down at a slight angle to help keep the die from skipping as it goes through, and then just run it all the way through. Also a good idea to make sure your top plate is nice and clean. So now when I take this off here, you can see this is the area that we're going to be keeping and using. I have a piece of white 80-pound cardstock here, the same cardstock, and I'm going to take the word portion of the die now and I'm going to cut it out twice from this white cardstock. And this is a really fun word die because it's super easy to use and it's so big that it creates an amazing focal point automatically on your card. So you can see like it doesn't cut out a whole bunch of individual letters. Everything's kind of connected, which makes it super easy to use. I'm putting some glue here on one of the layers, not very much, just kind of dotting it along the layer because I'm going to layer these two pieces together. I've got the second die cut here. I'm just going to lay it right over the top, dropping it on there, using my tweezers as sort of a third hand. I love reverse tweezers because they just allow you to hang on to stuff so your hands are free. I'm going to put an acrylic block over that as it's drying and layer up the other half of the word die here, just putting some glue on there and again laying the second layer over the top and using my fingers to pinch everything together. By layering these die cuts together, we're going to make it so that the word die cut's going to stand out just a little bit more from the card, and it does make a difference. It's subtle, but the difference is there. Bring back in that piece we cut out with the shadow for the word die sentiment, and then I have an A2 size piece of cardstock here in this nice lovely dark teal. You can see that's going to create a nice amount of contrast. So when you're working with a stenciled background you've created, whatever you put behind it, you want it to have some nice contrast to help it pop. I have a piece of inexpensive acetate here that's cut to 3.5 by 4.5 inches, and I have some 1/4 inch double-sided tape. I'll start here by adding the double-sided tape all the way around where that happy birthday shadow was cut out from. This does not have to be perfect. You're not going to see it. I'm just kind of pinching the double-sided tape as I work my way around and take it around these corners. This is all one piece of double-sided tape here all the way around. I'll make sure this is nice and adhered down before I take off that release tape. And then once I get that release tape off, I can just take my piece of acetate and it's going to lay right over the top. I'm just going to make sure that all of that double-sided tape is covered by the acetate because we don't want any sticky residue that could catch our sequins later. I've got some double-sided foam adhesive strips here. These are a little bit thicker. They're kind of like a high loft. If you don't have that style, you also could just double up any kind of foam tape that you have to create whatever thickness you need, so that way your sequins or shaker mix or whatever you're using can move around freely. I'm also making sure that that foam tape is butted up on each side, so that way there's no gaps, no little areas where the sequins could escape. I'm going to bring in another strip to add some support, as well as to make the area that the shaker mix needs to go smaller. So that saves on shaker mix, right? It means you have to use less. And also it helps keep the shaker mix always showing. So it's always going to be kind of resting right along the bottom of that happy birthday when we're all finished. To help with static and to keep your sequins or your shaker mix from sticking to the foam tape, I recommend grabbing some anti-static powder that is meant for embossing and just running it along the edges of your foam tape. You also could rub your acetate with a dryer sheet. Both ways work really well. I have some iridescent little balls here that I'm going to put inside my shaker. These are really fun. So I'm sprinkling them out here onto my base, which is that piece of the dark teal cardstock. And then I haven't removed any of that release tape from the foam tape yet. I'm keeping it on there and just layering it over the top to see if I have enough mix. And so I can kind of play around with that. I'm pretty happy now with what I have here. So I am going to go ahead and remove the release tape, but I'm not going to take that tape off of all the sides. I'm only going to take it off of the left and right hand side and then along the bottom. I'm going to leave those two top strips at the top with the release tape on there. So that's still on there, so that way if I decide I need more or less of my shaker mix, I have the opportunity to add or remove some. I'm going to line this up over the top and just make sure I have a nice even border going all the way around our pretty stenciled background piece here. And once I'm happy, I'll just very carefully place it down. Now I'm going to kind of shake this a little bit, make sure it looks like I have a good amount in there, and I feel like I do. So you could see if I wanted to add or remove some, I could just pinch it open like this, but I'm not going to add or remove any. So now I can just use my little die pick here to help get the release tape started and pull it off of the foam tape until it comes up and out and I can grab it. There we go, with my fingertips. And then once I have all of that release tape removed from those two top pieces at the top, I can go ahead and lay it down and flatten it, and we have this nice fun shaker background now from our word die, from our shadow of our word die. So the last step we have here, or second to the last step, is to add some glue to the back of the actual word die and put it over the acetate. Now I did use liquid glue. This does work with acetate, but it just takes a little bit of time to dry. So you got to be a little patient. It doesn't take too long, but it takes longer than double-sided tape. So I've got both of the pieces of the word die down now, and I will put an acrylic block on there just to help hold it in place while it is drying. Now I actually am doing the last step, which is to add some glue to the back of the completed card panel and then just layer it over the top of an A2 sized card base. I run my fingers along the edges to make sure it lines up nice and straight. So here is our finished word shaker card, which is so fun. I love that you can do this with any word sentiment die as long as there is a shadow layer to it. That's all you need. And then you can just add in your favorite stenciled background or any pattern paper. Very easy to do. I hope that you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.